Hey guys, I think we are live. I'm trying to make sure that I am clicking all the right buttons here. They changed the way that Facebook Lives look, so I'm still like second guessing myself. Before we get started, please pay attention. It seems that there are some spammers that have been posting on this event. So if you guys see some crazy links in the comments, please do not click on them. This is a free event. I am not asking for credit card information. So if you see crazy links, do not click on them. We are just going to report them and ignore them, and hopefully they stop bothering us because this is crazy. So I'm going to give everybody just a few minutes to pop on here before we get started. So my husband is working late tonight, so I left the kids, the baby's in bed, but the other ones are up there kind of hanging out in their rooms. So this is real life, so if I got a kid running down here, don't be surprised. I'm so glad you guys are here tonight. While we're waiting for everybody to pop on and join us, go ahead and share and like the post so we can make sure that all the special education parents who need this information can find it. I am working my way through IEP assessments and parent input statements from last week's live. For those of you who grabbed those, that sale ended on Friday. Looks like we've got a few of you popping on in the comments. Again, I don't know what they're doing up there, it's really loud. If you guys see any crazy links in the comments, please do not click on them. I am not asking for any credit card information. This is a free event. If at any point I have a paid event, I will use a program like PayPal or Venmo or something like that that's reliable. So it looks like the spammers have kind of popped in here on some of my posts again. So I just want to make sure you guys know, do not enter any credit card information. If you IEP assessments and parent input statements from last week. If you guys have grabbed one of those packages and you haven't heard from me, please email me or let me know here, send me a message. There was a whole lot of you in my email inbox, and so I think I've got everybody, but I just want to make sure that I've contacted everybody and we have something set up to get your assessment rolling. If you guys missed out on IEP assessments from last week or help writing your parent input statement, please let me know. We can still work together. Philip says this was hard to find. I'm sorry that this was hard to find. It should have said in the event box that this was live from my Facebook page. Shonda says she didn't get questions answered from last week. If you have questions, please leave them in the comment box. I'm happy to answer them as we go. Even if they're questions from last week, we'll still do our best to get to those. And thank you very much, Barbara. I took the time to do my hair for you guys today, despite my children being crazy upstairs. Oh, look, see, there's a spammer. I'm gonna go ahead and block him real quick. I don't understand why this is. It is not just my page. Don't click on that link that whoever that is posting. This is completely crazy. I'm gonna delete them and hide all the comments, so bear with me for a second. Okay, so tonight, I know the spammer's here, guys. Do not click on that. I'm so sorry. There's gonna be a few of them, I assume. I'm trying to delete them as I can. But feel free to report those crazy links in the comments over there, because that is not me. I am not taking any credit card information. Do not put your information in those links over there. Shonda has a child who is deaf and hard of hearing and having trouble getting help. Go ahead and send me a message, Shonda. We will get that all worked out. I'm happy to. Yes, jack the spammer up. This is ridiculous. So this is not just my page that this is happening to. I pay attention to like all the special education live chats that I can, just so that I can get all the information for you guys. And this is happening all over the United States. They have just like latched on to us special needs parents and are trying to steal all of your credit card information. Will this be recorded, posted later? So yes, after this, I will be sending out an email in the morning with a replay, but you can also come back to this page and look under videos and it will be posted there. So tonight we're going to talk about remote learning. Over the last few weeks, we've talked a lot about remote learning, and that's because it's a really new thing. So we're all kind of unsure what we're doing, right? I'm speaking to parents all the time who are worried that their child is going to be left behind given the changes in our school environments. Yes, this applies to all students on IEPs in all states. I will definitely do that. I think I put it in there already. Did I not put it in the title? I will have to update the title afterwards. I don't think I can change it while I'm live, but I am also worried that my child is going to get left behind when it comes to COVID schooling and remote schooling. We are on day 2 of remote schooling, and it's gone better, honestly, than I expected. But there's still been some like anxiety and bumps in the road, and we haven't even got to the point where we're working with services yet. His first day with any kind of services is Thursday, so we've just been through 2 days of meeting the teacher, and it's hard. I am nervous just like you guys. We have a 3-year review coming up this year and eligibility meeting, and that makes me really nervous because I am really unsure how we are going to get accurate present levels in a remote environment. So that's something I'm looking into for you guys. I did a live chat about it a couple weeks ago, so I've kind of got a good idea of how to make that happen. If you guys are getting a review and need help with that, understanding what present levels are, why they're important, go back and check out that live chat. It was a pretty good one. I think it had some good information in there. So what I want to say to you guys, though, is as special needs parents, we have been preparing for this kind of difficulty our kids' whole lives, guys. How many times have you guys been told no about things that the doctor says your child is never going to do? They're never going to accomplish. The school says, nope, your child isn't capable of doing that, right? We get told that all the time. We're told no to therapies that they need. We're told no to supports and services in school. And how many of you have fought with an insurance company over what is covered and what isn't, right? We have been fighting our kids' whole lives. There is obstacles every time we turn around. This is just an obstacle, but we always find a way. So we have been met with roadblocks our entire parenting journeys, and this is just another roadblock that we have to navigate and figure out how to get around it. This is where your creativity as a special needs parent is really going to come out, because you guys have been working at getting around roadblocks your kids' whole lives. If you guys have been following me, you've heard me talk about a remote learning plan being added to the IEP. And for your district, this might be called something else. However, a remote learning plan is a written plan that will protect your child's rights and keeps the IEP intact for when we return to the classroom. But it still has to be followed because it is attached to the IEP. So timelines still apply, all of that stuff. Keep in mind too that back in March, we've talked about this too, but just for people who are new, you need to know this. Back in March, the Department of Education, this is a federal thing, offered no waivers for special education. So what that means to you is that your IEP still has to be followed. The timelines still apply, and your child is still entitled to special education support and services regardless of what that environment is. So I'm going to go back real quick and make sure I've got all the questions, because at the end it gets a little crazy. If you guys hear children screaming, I promise they're fine. They're just really loud. So yes to all states. Sorry about the spammer. Please don't click on anything. Do we have to ask for an IEP meeting to create the remote learning plan, or just email the school? So an addendum is an addition to your IEP that does not require a meeting. That doesn't mean you can't call a meeting. It might be a good idea to call a meeting and say, hey, what do you guys think? What can we put in this plan? Especially if your school isn't initiating adding this to your IEP already. It might be a good idea to call a meeting, but you don't need to. You can just say, hey, I want to add a remote learning plan by addendum to the IEP, and here's what I want included in it. And you'll kind of want to spell it out for them. I as time goes on and schools start, going back to class remotely, I'm seeing, my dogs are crazy too. I'm seeing more and more schools add in some sort of plan, regardless of what they're calling it. So your school probably isn't going to be surprised when you email them and say, this is what I want. It might take a meeting, but you don't have to have a meeting. I've been waiting for my son's IEP since February, and even had a meeting with the principal of my son's school in July, since he lied to me, and we agreed to have it in August because of COVID. I've sent 3 emails and I've gotten nothing back or phone calls. Any idea what I should do next? You should message me so we can get this handled, because timelines still apply. It's not acceptable that they are not following timelines and that they're ignoring your request for an IEP. They are not in compliance of federal law by not doing that. Jacqueline, I am glad you found me too. I'm happy to help. Let's see. Deanna's daughter is 8 and heading into 3rd grade, and she's still reading at an EE level. Deanna, I'm again happy to review your IEP and see kind of how we can improve that for you. Catherine says, my fear is my son not only is not an electronics kid and he will only watch for 5 minutes and isn't interested at all. We're going to talk about ways to engage our kids in just a few minutes, so pay attention to that. I sent an email to the case manager asking how they will provide my son with accommodations and modifications to the IEP, and I'm being told that I have to have an IEP meeting. Why do I have to have an IEP meeting? So I think schools are just nervous, honestly, about writing things down over email and telling you this is what it's going to look like. So having a meeting and making it kind of part of his formal plan isn't necessarily a bad idea. I wouldn't be opposed to having a meeting. Just when you get to the meeting and they're saying, this is how we're going to provide XYZ support, you want to make sure that they're writing it down. So, and then make sure at the end of the meeting you're reading through those notes and making sure that what you guys agreed upon in the meeting is actually what's being put in the IEP. April, I'm glad you made it too. Do I have to contact the school regarding my son's IEP, or will they automatically contact me? I would not assume that the school is going to automatically contact you ever. So if you're concerned about something, I would absolutely reach out to them. Will you be reviewing the remote learning plan? I'd love to have that added. So we aren't going to talk specifically about the remote learning plan because we've been talking about that in the last couple live chats. So if you would like specifics, Amy, feel free to message me. I'm happy to go over that with you. The IEP accommodations for remote learning that we did on Monday, I think it was, last week, that one includes a lot of information about remote learning plans. So that would be another good video for you to go back and reference. Okay, I think I've got all the questions up until now. Oh, wait, here. Our school just told me that initially they will not be able to fulfill my daughter's monthly service minutes, but hope to work up to at least fulfilling them. Can they do that? So this is the short answer of this is no. They have to follow the IEP. However, it's hard for me to tell you exactly because I haven't seen your daughter's IEP and I don't know what services she's getting. I don't know your daughter and what her capabilities are. So the short answer is no. However, I do think that we need to be a little bit understanding of what schools, this giant task that they have in front of them. That doesn't mean we should give them a pass to not provide those services, but we should like approach that in kind of a kind way, I guess, and ask what the plan is. Okay, so you want to work up to that. How are we going to make up the minutes she's missed? What does that look like? How do we, one of the things we talked about in the last couple chats is this phrase, how do we get back to the level of support we were at prior to COVID shutdown? So that's one of the things that you want to ask them. And again, Jennifer, I'm happy to help you with that. My son missed testing this spring due to COVID and his IEP is outdated. The school won't accept outside testing. So the school will or should take into account any outside testing. However, they don't have to rely on that outside testing. The school will want to do their own kind of evaluations. So I don't know if that completely answers your question. So if you need something more specific about that, please message me. Can special ed services still be provided in person one-on-one if the school closes? My child never participated in an online during the first closure. So some schools are offering walk-in services. It's something that they're working up to. Maybe they're not offering it right away, but it's something that they will have available later on. If that is what is most appropriate for your child, then yes, it should be an option. However, I'm not a lawyer. I can't guarantee anything. I haven't seen your child's IEP, so it's hard for me to say, yes, that's absolutely reasonable. The school's probably going to push back on that, but the school is required to provide your child with a free, appropriate public education. And so if that is what is most appropriate for your child, then that's what we should be asking for. I skipped you, Daphne. What did you ask? If you could put your question again below, that would be great. The remote learning plan video that I did is in the video section on this page. Facebook Messenger or email is good for me, Christy. All right, I'm going to get going on our what do we need to know remote learning tips for special education parents and families and students and all of us. Number one, we need to set up a space for our child to learn that is not the kitchen table. We've talked about this before, but it's really, really important for our children to feel prepared to learn in a space that was meant for learning. So when our kids go to school, their bodies know when they get there, this is the place of learning. This is where I come to do my work and follow the expectations and I get my therapy done. When our kids come to the kitchen table, hopefully, their bodies know it's time to eat, right? We're not doing a lot of other things at the kitchen table. Primarily, the table is for eating. Eating and learning happening at the same places leaves their bodies kind of unsure of what they're supposed to do. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this before, but people who are sleep consultants or sleep therapists, they will tell you not to have toys in your child's room so that when they go to bed, their bodies are prepared to sleep because that's what happens in that room. Or if you've heard not to have a TV in your bedroom if you're having trouble sleeping, because then when you go to your room, your body knows that's their cue to kind of go to bed. Providing them their own space to learn is the same sort of idea. We should also be dressing for success, for lack of a better term. Getting up, getting dressed, following that morning routine, just like if we are going to school. We get up, we get ready, and we head to our school space that we've created. You don't need anything Pinteresty and fancy. We don't need any fancy schmancy spaces, but a folding table in the corner of the dining room, if that's all the space you have, is absolutely appropriate. Make sure that that space has readily available tools for them so that they know this space is for learning. Don't worry about what it looks like. We're just setting the stage for learning. So speaking of space, I want you guys to reach out to your child's school social worker or OT or whoever their service provider is. I'm so sorry. And discuss what tools your child uses at school and how you can duplicate those things at home. We've kind of touched base on this before, but we want to make sure we're getting creative with the things that you have in your home. We don't need to recreate an OT room or a sensory room, but providing them a separate space for breaks might be important if that's what your child needs. We cleared out a space in my son's closet, and we tossed some pillows in there and a bin of fidgets. It is super not fancy. It's like old stuffed animals and things that were just kind of sitting around the house anyways. You can add twinkle lights in there, a sound machine, maybe a ball to bounce off the wall. Another one of my sons really likes to bounce a ball really hard. You can use the park down the street for sensory breaks. If you don't have the tools you need, ask the team for support. How can we make this happen? If it's like a cushion or a kick band or something like that, that's something that can easily be shared from school at home, or we can recreate that at home in a creative way. But ask your team for support. Rely on them to find out what your child uses at school so you can recreate that at home. Also we're going to talk a little bit about social interaction too. This is one of my biggest concerns when we talk about returning to school in remote ways, is because over Zoom, a lot of the times our kids' microphones are muted, right? So they're not having those side conversations and those conversations in the hall on the way to specials, and they're not having that group work where they're laughing and chatting, or lunch or snack break, all of those things. So we want to try and facilitate as many social interactions as we can, obviously in a socially distanced, appropriate way for your family. So coordinating school breaks with neighbors or friends might be an option. Even if it's just a few minutes at a time, like, hey, your neighbor across the street, do you have a break at this time? Let's go in the driveway and hang out for a little bit. Even if our kids are not good at interacting with peers, I think it's important that we are still bringing them around peers to offer them those opportunities to work on things. After school, you can meet up with a few kids at the park for social distance activities. We just have to get really creative with how we're providing social opportunities for our kids. It can be really easy to be overwhelmed with this whole experience, right? And as a result, you're going to isolate yourself. How many special needs parents, we sit home and we don't leave because our home space is a controlled environment. You can manage behavior at home, right? There's no staring eyes and judgmental looks. I totally get it. When I was in the depth of struggling with Mason's behavior and delays when he was younger, I also had 3 other kids in 3 years, and I was just fried. I didn't leave the house. I looked like a hot mess all the time. I don't even remember if I showered during any of that time. I didn't leave the house other than to go to the store or the doctor for years. And a big reason of that was because it was overwhelming to leave the house. So even if you're overwhelmed, I want you guys to be trying to provide our children with these social opportunities. Like I said, even if they're not interacting, just having them around peers is important, because back then when I wasn't leaving the house, or before when you guys weren't leaving the house, our kids were going to school and getting exposed to social interactions. This is really different. Remote learning, we want to keep our kids safe. That's number one priority. But facilitating social opportunities for social interaction, I think is really important. I want you guys to check out your IEP goals when it comes to social skills or interacting with other kids. And I want you guys to figure out how we can use those goals and implement them at home. So how can we still work on those goals in those facilitated social opportunities with a friend or a neighbor or whatever at the park? Talk to your team about it and see how you can get creative. And then I want you guys to tell me about it, because I love creative solutions and I want to hear all about it so I can make sure I know what's working and what's not working for you guys. Okay, so I have like a crazy idea. Can you guys what if we brought virtual social work sessions, virtual OT sessions, whatever that is, to the park with a peer? Like, what, even if that peer isn't working on a similar goal, just having them exposed to another peer and those social interactions. I mean, can we bring the Chromebook to the park and do an OT session outside of the house? Like, maybe we do it in the backyard. What does that look like? Just get creative with it. Like, talk to the social worker and talk to the occupational therapist or the speech therapist and say, hey, I think that my kid's like tired of sitting here looking at this computer screen. Can we go outside and do this? Maybe that's a really big distraction for your kid. I don't know, but I want you guys to be getting creative and using social interaction as a tool to make progress towards those IEP goals. I don't know what you guys think about that. I was like off the top of my head. That's not even in my notes. I want you guys to also be asking for additional check-ins the first few weeks. And what do I mean by check-ins? I mean that the team should be checking in with your child, obviously, but I want you to also have them be checking in with you, because you are facilitating the learning, even if you're not the teacher, right? So I want them to check in with you. Stay in communication with your team about what's working well, what is not working. Discuss how you can improve this. If something just is not going right, go to the team and say, no, this is not happening, it's not working. Make sure you're putting this in writing so we have documentation of it, and communicate with them, like, how can we get creative to make this happen? What does this look like? If the way we're doing it doesn't work, what's our next step? What's the next option? Most schools are doing remote for just a couple weeks, and then they're heading back to classroom, or that's the plan. Some schools have longer term remote learning plans. So one of my concerns with these short term plans is that schools are just going to be pushing it off, right? Like, oh, well, we can't do it now, but in another 2 weeks, we're going to be back in the classroom and it will be all good then. We don't want to wait. We need to provide services and supports and education for our students for how school looks right now, because if we don't return to the classroom in 2 weeks, we have wasted 2 weeks' time. So stay in touch with your team, let them know what's not working, and really advocate for a plan right now. That's why that remote learning plan is going to be really important for you guys, because that's a written plan and it can be changed also. Like, just because we write it down on Monday doesn't mean in 2 weeks, if we know it's not working, we can't change it again. It's a fluid document, it changes all the time, and if something is not working and we've tried it, get creative and figure out what the next step is. Let's see, I'm going to go back through, I'm going to go back through the rest of the questions at the end so we can get through some of this stuff for you guys. I want you guys, so somebody asked me in the last live or 2 lives ago, I don't remember, about behavior intervention plans. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I want you guys to be providing incentives, and not just you, but I want you to encourage your team, your IEP team, to provide incentives. If you have a behavior intervention plan at school, how can we use those ideas or tools or that framework of the behavior intervention plan to incentivize participation and engagement at home? Even if you don't have a behavior intervention plan, how can we use positive reinforcement at home to provide an incentive to complete the work, or to to participate or turn in homework, those sort of things? How can we use incentives for that? Frequent praise, positive language, preferred activity breaks, token economy systems, first then strategies. All of those are accommodations and positive reinforcement things that we can do at home and team up with the school too. So part of the issue that I have with remote learning is that I work from home. My husband works from home. We have 4 kids. I just can't be, and you guys will understand this, like I can't be sitting with all 3 of my kids at the same time, making sure that they're doing the work all at the same time. So we really want to lean into our teams and say, okay, here's where my boundaries are, here's my limitations. Can we team up and tackle this together? What kind of incentives work at school? How can we make that happen at home? Another reason that we want to do that is that we want to provide consistency across environments. When we go back to school, many of our kids struggle with transition, right? Going back to school is going to be a big change, even more than normal, because school looks very different now from what it did when we left it. If we have these incentives at home and at school that are the same, if they have the same kinds of supports and tools at home and at school, it's going to help them ease into that transition a little bit easier, because it's a consistency across environments sort of thing. If our kids know what to ask for, know what to expect, they're going to feel more supported and ease that transition a little bit more. Not to say that it's not still going to be difficult. Remote learning back to the classroom with masks and social distancing and all of that is going to be hard for all of us. So I think that is an important thing, though, that we're leaning into our teams, asking what's already working and how we can duplicate that at home. If you're not sure what this might look like at home, a behavior intervention plan at home or a positive reinforcement system at home, again, send me a message or reach out to the team if you're not getting the answers that you need. We can create that remote learning plan together and create a positive reinforcement system for you also. Pick and choose your battles. This is a hard one, right? So this is like perfect example because my kids are upstairs acting a fool, right? That doesn't have anything to do with school, but I know that they're safe up there, and if they make a mess, you know, it is what it is, sort of thing. I'll clean it up. They'll clean it up. Pick and choose my battles. My husband should be home any second now, and hopefully he can go handle that. Right now, this is kind of my priority. So this is not a battle that I'm picking. I want you guys to be focused on the schedule for school and keep in mind that some things may not be a priority on some days. So we talked about getting up and getting dressed and following our routine. If brushing your teeth regularly before school is a battle every day, can we do it after their first break, after snack, at lunchtime? Give your child choices and let them have a little control over this. We don't want to be forcing them to do things and creating a battle just to have a battle. If it's a priority thing, if it's a safety thing, if they've gone a week and they haven't brushed their teeth, maybe that's a battle. But kind of pick and choose what's important right now. If your child has done 10 homework assignments on a worksheet of 20 questions, but they've answered them all correct, is that worth a battle? Because to me, it's not. We've talked a little bit about modified homework assignments, and that's one of those things. Like, is it important? If they've given you on a Zoom call, if they're due for 30 minutes of a Zoom call with their speech therapist, but they had 15 really good minutes of engaged minutes, I'm calling it a day. Like 15 minutes and they've, disengaged and they're not participating. I think that's, I'd rather have quality time over quantity of time in that kind of a case. So pick and choose your battles. Keeping Zoom interactive. Somebody above asked about this. This is going to be a really important one. I have a teacher friend, and this also goes into incentives. They can use this as an incentive. But I have a teacher friend who is taking her kids, this is so cool, on virtual field trips every Friday. Some Fridays she's like heading out to places like the zoo or whatever. Sometimes she's using a fun background and using it as a teaching moment, adding it to part of their curriculum. She's going to the Jelly Belly factory and giving a tour to her classroom. Like, how cool is that? She's doing Spirit Day. She's playing games. They're doing scavenger hunts and freeze dance and bingo and I Spy. This is another good way too to create and incorporate social interaction between peers. They can, on Zoom, they can break out into small groups and do things for kids who are able to do that or in that kind of functioning category. I think that my comments might have gotten turned off over here. I don't know. If it did, I'm sorry. I'll try and fix it in a second. But try and keep Zoom interactive, whether that is through direct instruction when they're learning academics, or when they're working in a group, or they're working with a support person. Keeping it interactive by doing some of those fun things like virtual field trips. How fun is that? That's something that your kids can look forward to all week. Now, one thing I will tell you is that if your child is not able to follow the expectations, if they're not turning in homework or completing the work due to behavior that is a part of their disability, we should not be keeping them away from Fun Friday. That applies to in the classroom and remote learning. We should still be giving them an opportunity to participate the same as their peers, because we should not be punishing them for things that are behaviors for skills that they don't have. I could get on a soapbox and talk to you guys about that all day, but I'm not going to. We'll save that for another live. Know your rights, guys. I'm not a lawyer. I cannot give you guys suggestions. I can lead you to that information. You can go to the IDEA website, the Department of Education website. If you're in Illinois, the ISB website, all of that will have the same information on there. There are no waivers to special education per the Department of Education. If your district is still requiring, is telling you that they cannot meet your child's needs, they still have that responsibility. The district is required to provide your child what they need to be successful regardless of the environment that the school is in. If you are due for an annual meeting back in February, they are still required to have that annual meeting for you. Your IEP does not expire. However, they are required to follow those timelines. If you guys feel like your district is not meeting your child's needs, please write your concerns down and email them to the team. We want to make sure that we're creating and recording documentation. We want to make a record and a paper trail of any kind of communication that we're having with the school, especially when we have concerns. When we are writing down our concerns and the school is not responding to them, that's a problem. Any data that you guys have been taking at home can also be helpful to track regression or unmet needs, but keep communication as fact-based as possible, and absolutely reach out again if you need help. I knew it was coming. I've been working with families to create remote learning plans, and I put it up on the website so I can help you guys with that also. And I'm going to discount it just like I did the IEP assessments just until Friday. Let's work together so that we can identify what your child needs to be successful in a remote learning environment. This remote learning plan that we're going to create together, we are going to prioritize accommodations, get creative on services and supports. I'm going to provide you with the tools you need as a parent to help your child progress at home in a remote environment. We're going to be putting a plan in writing to make sure that we're protecting your child's IEP for when you do return to the classroom, but also protecting your child's education regardless of what the environment is. If you guys need help creating that written plan, incentives, a behavior intervention plan at home, let me know. I will share the link in the comments of this, and the details are up on my website now. Our next live chat is going to be August 26th at 7 p.m. We're going to talk about the must-do list before, during, and after the IEP meeting, and what you should be doing before, during, and after the IEP meeting. So I'll see you guys there. But I am going to go back through the comments real quick and make sure that I get to as many comments as I can on here. So, and again, please don't click on any of the spammer links. I'm so sorry about that. I thought they were gone, but they came back. Thank you, Julie, for making sure everybody knows that this guy's a scammer. Okay, I think I'm back to where I was. Let's see. I signed domain paperwork in February. Evaluation could not be completed due to COVID. District wants me to attend another domain meeting and they want me to sign a new domain and I denied it. They're saying the paperwork in February is no longer valid. So I guess are they wanting to open up a different domain than you had originally opened up? Let's see, this is Holly Frey. If it's this, I guess that's like a formality for them to reopen it. I would say that if, we need them to complete the evaluation, right? So we want them to open the domain, regardless of how that gets done. However, we want to say, I'm trying to think what the best way is to phrase this, but I think we need to write an email to the team and say, I'm willing to open up this new domain, but I want you to know that the old timelines still apply per the Department of Education. I expect this to be done in a timely manner, that sort of thing. By law, when you first open up that domain, they have 60 to 90 days to complete that. And so those timelines would still apply. However, COVID has kind of thrown things for a loop. It's hard to do these evaluations in a remote environment. So I would say that we don't want them to take the 90 days, but we also don't want them to take 2 weeks and then rush the evaluation results also. If you want to message me about that, Holly, I can probably give you some more exact information about that. It's a little hard without having seen the IEP and knowing more about the situation. My son has an IEP. Will there be individually a teacher? Daphne, I don't know if your child is in special education or if they're in a general education. Maybe you could message me and give me a little bit more details so that I can give you a better answer. Lorena says, my son has an IEP, he's going into 6th grade, and I wonder if they will test him to update his goals because I got them with him at home. Well, they probably have a copy of your IEP. I would hope that they would. And generally they do new evaluations. It's different depending on the state that you're in, but generally it's every 3 years they do new evaluations. My son's going to 6th grade also, so that is a really common 3-year evaluation year. So I would definitely reach out to the team and ask what their plan is as far as evaluations go. So Keely needs to know how to engage her autism ADHD child with high anxiety. It sounds just like my guy. He stares off and doesn't want any part of it. So we need to figure out what his motivators are and see how we can incorporate that to keep him engaged in class. I have a student who is in a therapeutic day school, and over the summer they used ESY to just build rapport. It was kind of a cool situation. So the social worker got on and she did her social work magic, but she talked to him about Minecraft, I think it was, like whatever his motivator was, so that he felt connected enough that she could follow through on teaching him the skills he needs to progress through his IEP goals. So we need to identify what his motivators are, figure out what his preferred topics of conversation are, and see how he can incorporate that into his services at school. Shauna gets really frustrated because she's been shoved to the next person constantly. her son is immunocompromised, and the doctor has told them what has to be done to keep him safe, and they all continue to do is push me to the next individual. Shonda, I would love to talk to you more about that and see how we can get a plan in place. Sometimes it just takes a really well-written email to kind of call attention to the issue and get the ball moving in the right direction. If the district can't do 3-year assessments, can I get the district to pay for a neuropsych since they cannot do in-person assessments? So I would say that we want to give the district the opportunity to do those 3-year assessments. However, if you feel like they are not accurate, you are absolutely within your rights to ask for an independent educational evaluation, which would be, potentially an outside neuropsychologist. I've contacted everyone I can think of regarding my son's IEP for this year. He's going into K5. I know who his new speech therapist will be, but nothing on a new case manager, no contact info for everyone. I even have, okay, so you've emailed the superintendent. So typically my suggestion would be to keep going up the chain of command and see, if you're not getting a response from this. I don't like to use threats and things. I think that's not okay. Leanne, when do you start school? Maybe if there's a new case manager, it's totally possible they haven't hired someone yet for that, and that's why they haven't. Regardless, somebody should be contacting you. What I would do is I would, again, like really well-written letter on XYZ dates. I contacted this person, this person, this person, and I want you to copy them all in the email. We're just going to blast everybody on email. I contacted you all on multiple occasions. I need to know what the plan is for my child. If there isn't one right now, who my contact, if you don't know who my contact will be, when will you have that information for me? And then kind of go from there. And if they're still not responding to you, by all means, let me know, and we can kind of work on that from there. So if you have 120 minutes per week in an IEP, so yes, Lisa, if your child has 120 minutes per week in an IEP, they still have to provide those remotely. However, that's kind of where that remote learning plan is going to come into play, because maybe it's not appropriate for your child to sit in front of the computer and remotely learn for 120 minutes. Maybe they need less support right now, but we don't want to be changing the IEP. We want to be adding to the IEP to accommodate COVID. So I keep saying this. We aren't changing the IEP to accommodate COVID. Our child still has the same needs in the classroom that they did before COVID. We are adding to the IEP to accommodate COVID, if that makes sense. I've been told he will receive all the same services at home, but I said if he's not in the building, who's going to help him with his sign if I'm at work, since they cannot guarantee them to be okay in the classroom. Hopefully they'll be providing you with some walk-in minutes, but again, if you feel like he's not getting the minutes or the services that he's getting aren't appropriate, please reach out and let's get that worked out for you. I have no space except for the kitchen table, unfortunately. I think that that's okay, Regina. I totally understand that not everybody's space is the same. So if you don't have a separate space from the kitchen table, what if we got out like a placemat and, like a toolbox sort of thing, so every time that mom sets out this placemat and this box of crayons and tools, then I know it's time to learn. Maybe you're giving him a special chair too, like something to signify that this is a learning space. What do we do if your child has an interpreter in his IEP and not receiving that help anymore then what? No one is going to come to our house to help these kids, so what choices do we have? If your child is getting one-on-one from an interpreter, we need to be reaching out to the team to see how they're planning to accommodate that. If it's in his IEP, they should still be doing that. You're right, nobody is most likely going to come to your house to do that, so how can we get creative to provide them the support that they need in order to learn? Do not click on the scammer. I'm so sorry. Sonia, I will email you or message you after this, or if you can message me, I can give you the link to this afterwards so that you can review it after, and then message me any questions you have. I'm happy to answer them. I'm so sorry, Diana. I've been trying to tell everybody not to click on those things. They are just attacking all the special education people. A remote learning plan does not require a new IEP. You're right. It is an addition to the IEP. Do not click on the scammers. Social interaction because of COVID is definitely really hard. And so somebody asked, what about COVID? Social interaction is not possible now. I am not encouraging anybody to go, hugging and like hanging out with friends if that's not what you're comfortable with. We can go to the park and play Simon Says, or play 6 feet apart from each other, or play driveways across from each other, that sort of thing. Whatever you're comfortable with. If all you're comfortable with, or all that's safe for your child, is Zoom, that's where that interaction through games and stuff like that is going to be important. You can even do that afterwards. So I totally understand that everybody is at different comfort levels when it comes to COVID. We want to make sure we're keeping our child safe. So please don't make any decisions that is not a good decision for your family. Let's see. Where am I finding the peer? Again, this is a hard one because, especially with COVID, it makes it even harder. You can reach out to special needs groups in your area and see if somebody's interested in creating something like that. Reach out in your neighborhood groups and see if somebody is interested in creating something like that. I would be willing to bet you guys are not the only parents in this situation looking for safe social opportunities for your children. And so hopefully all of us special needs moms can kind of put our heads together and figure out a way to safely get this done for our kids. Yes, Keisha says, if you have a kitchen table and if all you have is a kitchen table, that's also appropriate. You change the atmosphere by changing dishes to books. I absolutely agree with you. If that's all you have, please do not take me saying you have to have another area as vital. You do the best with what you have. Another learning space, I think, is ideal, but if the kitchen table is what you have, then by all means use that and then change the environment. We're obviously not going to have dishes on the table if what we're doing is learning. So just change the environment so that the tools your child has are tools for learning, not tools for eating. Our driveway is within a good distance for the neighbor kids to talk to each other. We had our kids chalk up the driveway and they interacted with the neighbors. That's a great idea. I love the idea, especially for our kids who are working on fine motor skills. Remember we were talking about using those or working on those IEP goals in a social environment that isn't sitting necessarily in front of Zoom. Chalking the driveway is a great one for kids who are working on sight words or handwriting or spelling, reading. Chalking the driveway is a great opportunity. Keep the boundaries, jump rope competition, chalk drawings, dance party. I'm always down for a good dance party. Can we submit changes to the remote learning plan without an official meeting? So yes, you can. The remote learning plan should be added to the IEP with an addendum. An addendum does not require a meeting. My kid just started kindergarten and Zoom became a gab fest between me and whoever it was with. She won't sit for a participation session. She got nothing out of it. We're currently in person, but I'm trying to be prepared because I feel like this will change. I agree. It's probably going to change. I hate that, but I do think it's definitely a possibility. So if if she's being successful in school, so like I feel like you have this like leg up because your child has already built some connection with her teacher for when, if she does return to a remote kind of learning environment. So I would create a plan now for what Zoom will look like, what remote learning will look like if it happens, even though you're going to school in person now, because if it changes, we want to have a written plan in there for our kids. How can we request a change of school? So this again is a really specific question, so feel free to message me some more of the details. If you need to change schools, there's always the inter-district transfer request form that is granted kind of on a case-by-case basis. Most of the time you're responsible for transportation in that. If your child is in a special education classroom, then that kind of limits where you're able to go. So I know that probably doesn't answer specifically your question. How can parents keep track of data? So you can use past progress reports as like a good indicator of how the school was taking data on progress. Look at your child's IEP goals. Pay attention to speech therapies and all of that stuff, and see how that is working. You want to be writing down what's working, what's not working, what day it is, how many minutes we attempted, what's successful, what do you think will help. All of that is a good way for you to take data for your child. The entire SPED team my son was part of is on leave for the entire year, and I don't see them placing appropriate personnel in place within the next week. Can I do homeschooling for the special education portion and have him still be part of the curriculum for a class he's normally mainstream for? So this is kind of like a hairy situation. If you pull your child out to be homeschooled, your child is not eligible for IEP services anymore. But what you could do is you could send him to school for all of the things for a normal day, and then kind of bridge that gap at home in the evenings or on the weekends for those portions that he needs kind of extra help. However, just because the team is on leave doesn't mean that your child, that the school's excused from supporting your child. They still have to provide everything that they did before, regardless of the personnel. Staffing issues are not, like, it doesn't matter. It's not, like, I hate to say that, like, so harshly, but, like, that's not your child's problem, right? Like, your child is still entitled to his IEP. Where do I find the live videos again for accommodations and modifications and present levels? If you go to the videos tab on this page, there's a whole bunch of videos in there. Also, they're up on my YouTube channel too, so you should be able to find them there. Holly says they want to extend the timeline or be in compliance. They're out of compliance regardless of if you re-sign the domain or not. I would just, this is kind of one of those pick and choose your battles things. There's nothing we can do to go back and have them follow that timeline. So how can we move forward from here? We're trying with dual enrollment with homeschool and another parent's home and still therapy. It's interesting, Jenna, that your school's doing that, because a lot of schools, once you say that you're going to pull out to homeschool, they're not providing services. How do we help our kids with social emotional parts of their IEP during remote learning? How do we get those objectives met, or what is the best way to discuss those items with the IEP team? I'm trying to request a meeting to be set up before school starts officially figuring this all out. I love that you're being proactive to try and figure that out. I think that that's super important. Social emotional is going to be super hard, I think, during COVID for sure. However, what I would say is prioritize what you think your child needs now. So go through the IEP, look at those accommodations and modifications, look at the IEP goals and the objectives, and prioritize what is most important. We're not saying this is important, don't work on the rest. We're saying this is most important, this is where I want to spend the most of my time. how can we make that happen? So if social, let's see, if like emotional regulation is your biggest concern right now, go to the school and say, this is my number one priority. The rest is still important. How can we make this happen? And go from there. It's hard for me to give you exact without having seen the IEP. We were starting our 3-year assignment to be complete in April, but we were less than halfway. Will we be able to complete this year if and when we return back in person? So again, timelines still apply. The school should be finding a way to make this happen in a remote environment if they have to. If you have to walk in for evaluation services, that is a possibility also, but the timelines still apply. Most districts now have social emotional learning embedded in the curriculum, so this is absolutely true. This is embedded into the schedule. It's a time cut out of the day where your child has an extra opportunity, IEP or not, to spend some time with a counselor, a psychologist, or a social worker to work on that social emotional learning curriculum outside of the regular services that they're already receiving. It's been sent out to this new school, but we haven't heard anything else. Leon, why don't you go ahead and message me and give me a little bit more details so I can help you. If you go to my page, Catherine wants to know where to message you. You can email me, NicoleSchlechteradvocacy@gmail.com, or there's a message button at the top of this page somewhere. I think it just says message me or send message or something like that. If I unenroll my first grade son with autism this fall and re-register when fully in person, no COVID whenever this is, and have him in full therapies every day, do I need to be officially SPED homeschool labeled with the state, even if I'm not technically homeschooled? No. Homeschool is considered private school, and you have no, you do not have to register. Well, I don't know what state you're in, Kathy, so that would be for Illinois. You'll want to go look at your state website to get the exact information on that. I don't want to give you the wrong information. If you pull them out, though, for just a short amount of time, most likely their IEP is going to be reinstated as is. Most likely, if it's like longer than 6 months or a year, the school might want to do new evaluations and things like that. We had an IEP during COVID, and there is in-person therapy on the IEP. I got an email from the case manager saying it will be virtual therapy because there's no agency to provide in-person therapy at this moment. Do we have to add on the IEP that we're doing virtual? So you don't have to have a remote learning plan. I think it's important that we have a written plan that the school is required to follow, regardless of the environment that our child is in. If they can't provide in-person therapy, is virtual therapy appropriate for your child? And if it is, let's create a plan to make sure that that happens. A parent should not need to write a remote service learning plan. That's the school's responsibility to do. You are absolutely right. That's the school's responsibility to do that. And most schools around me are doing that. But I do think it's important that parents are proactive in creating a plan if the school is not taking care of that for them. And if the school is taking care of that for them, it's still important that parents are proactive to take part in the planning of what that looks like for them, because they're the ones that are at home while their children are learning. My son is in a self-contained program and usually fairly social during in-person school. However, when it comes to Zoom or any school activity in the remote classroom, he will not interact or focus on assignments. He gets a lot of one-on-one. So Amanda, does he have one-on-one support, like an aide at school? Because if that's the case, he should still be getting that in a remote environment. It might look a little bit different. I think that we really need to work with the school on engaging activities that interest him, giving him a job to do while the class is happening. That might be helpful. How can we make him feel important and give him a little control over that Zoom kind of classroom so that he has an incentive to be more engaged? This is so hard for so many of our kids. regarding using the kitchen table, I saw a neat idea about using foam boards to create a cubicle. I love that idea. Yes, so just get creative, whatever space you have. If it's a folding table, great. If you've got a Pinterest desk, amazing. If you have a kitchen table and that's all the space you have, that's okay too. So it says he won't attend to Zoom for one-on-one. He runs from the computer and even closes out the sessions. This is a really hard one, but again, it's going to take some creativity to make Zoom a more positive experience. So what motivates him and how can we use that in a Zoom session to engage him? Maybe it starts out with you participating, and then he kind of sees what happens and wants to participate in that too. Like I said, I had a student that talked to his social worker for a good 4 sessions about nothing but Minecraft. And that's what it took for him to participate. And now he's doing wonderful. Like, I can't even imagine, I can't even believe it's the same kid, so. My oldest is starting middle school 2 days a week in person and the other 3 days are virtual. He's going to be in the structured language unit, and I'm curious how they will implement speech with speech intervention specialists. In the spring, he wouldn't get on Zoom for it. So if he's going to be in person for 2 days a week, I would find out how reasonable it is that he receives his speech services on those days. If that is a priority of yours and he's not participating in a virtual, we should be asking for them on the days that he's in school. How can we keep track of data or even remote learning at a higher level when we parents are trying to work ourselves? Lisa, I do not have a great answer for you for that. I am in the same boat as you. I have 3 kids who are going to be remote learning in a couple weeks. And it's not going to be easy. I would say that we want to try and do as much like bridging the gap after work hours as possible, having your kids work in the same room as you if that is reasonable for you. I wish I had like a great answer for you for this, but I don't. If you are not able to help facilitate learning while you're working, this is something your team needs to be aware of, because we want to make sure that our children are learning in the most appropriate way possible. And if they don't have somebody there facilitating the learning for them, that really changes how they receive their education. And the school needs to be aware of that and what's going on, and figuring out a way to accommodate that. Maybe they are giving you a lot of assignments that you do after work hours. And just doing minimal things during school hours. We just have to get creative about things like that. I do not have a great answer for you, and I'm so sorry. In the spring, a lot of teachers were thrown into remote learning. It was new to so many districts. Please know that many schools have been working over the summer to come up with new and very improved plans and platforms. The states have also put out new guidelines in place to make schools and teachers and parents and students more accountable. Darlene, we talked so much about that in my last 2 lives. We really talked about how we can support our teachers and our schools, and how hopefully going back to remote learning in the fall is going to be really different. Can you advise what to do about the HPV vaccines? I cannot advise about that. I am not a medical professional. I am not a lawyer. That's kind of beyond the realm of my expertise. Christy wants to relay something she heard from a resource teacher. She was trying to assess her students virtually and was required to do so by the district. She had several students who were being given the answers by their parents as she assessed it, and it only hurts our kids when getting what they need if we're helping them on those assessments. It can alter their IEP goals and services, so resist helping them on any assessments. I know firsthand how hard that is to do. It is really hard not to jump in and like save your kid when they don't know the answer. We were at the eye doctor today and I could hear myself like saying the letters behind my daughter without even realize I was doing it. My child has a para and needs help with so much. She can't operate the Chromebook and manipulatives. I guess I have to act as her para at home. Is that correct? This is something you want to ask the school about. If that is reasonable for you and that's something that you can do, wonderful. But how can they provide that one-on-one support for your daughter in an appropriate way? I mean, maybe this is going to be walk-in services for you. A lot of schools are doing that. If she can't operate the Chromebook and manipulatives, how is she supposed to receive the same education as her peers? You and I can talk more about that if you want to message me. But yeah, that again, you're not alone. There's so many kids that are in the same boat. So, okay, if I missed any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them. Like I said, message me above. The remote learning plan is on my website. I'm happy to help you create that. And check your email tomorrow morning for a replay of this live, plus some freebies in there too. So I will see you guys later. I hope you have a good night.